stories are way more fun when they do not take themselves seriously. I find myself so drawn to stories that don't take themselves too seriously. Like Supernatural, that's like 5 years of my life. Good Omens, Dirk Gently, the list goes on. As a writer, it really seems like a puzzle to figure out how you actually don't take your stories too seriously. We have these stories inside us and we're so passionate about them that we want other people to care about them. So not taking them too seriously feels kind of weird, at least for me. I don't know about you. I don't know why my voice went to a higher octave. How exactly do we inject humor into our stories without taking away from the message that we're trying to say? Let's take a look at a story that does this very well, and that is Good Omens by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett. I think we can all agree that Good Omens is an amazing piece of fiction. I recently finished listening/reading. I listened to the audiobook, okay? Sue me. I still consider it reading, okay? I don't understand why people think that audiobooks is not reading. Still consuming a story. But anyway, I digress. I just finished reading the audiobook of Good Omens. So this video, it doesn't really go into the book, but there may be slight mentions of the book. The book is also very funny. I feel like both of them have different kinds of humor because novel humor versus television humor is quite different because you can play around with different things. In novels, you can play around with the character's thoughts, which you can't do in television or movies. Unless you have like voiceover, which they do not which they do to an extent in Good Omens, but not the character's thoughts. So in television movies, you get the opportunity to like have all this like longing looks. You have the comedy of their appearances, and we're going to be diving into that in this video. The premise of Good Omens alone is quite comedic. That an angel and a demon team up to stop the apocalypse. That is just like an invitation for humor, okay? It just is. Like, there's no way around it. Now, after I finished reading the book, I got curious about how exactly humor works. I mean, that seems very vague, but it's true. Like, it's very hard to write humor. It's very subjective and seems like something very natural. But I found that while doing my little research into Good Omens, that there are certain tactics that can be employed to really get the humor things going. That's what we're here to talk about. And we are going to get curious together, and we are going to look at how to study, and we are going to look at how Good Omens is funny. This is not going to be a play-by-play of Good Omens about like every joke and why it's funny. We're not gonna do that. We're not gonna like pick apart every single joke. We are more diving into plotting, we're diving into characters and how they are depicted and what makes them funny as characters, what makes the plot funny as a concept. We are also going to be talking about the type of humor that was employed by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett while writing the original book. This will help in employing these strategies in your own work. And that is the goal of this video. We want to learn how to make our work funny, how to make it engaging in a certain way, because humor is just a form of engagement. We want our audience to laugh, we want them to cry, we want them to love these characters as much as we do. So let's dive in. It's ridiculous. Okay, so let's start with... Okay, I can't even deal with this right now. This is ridiculous. Let's start with what kind of humor they use in Good Omens. Take this off. I can't even read my notes. Okay, they're gonna go. As humans, we tend to laugh when things are unexpected. Maybe you laughed at me randomly having 3D glasses on. Totally valid. I couldn't handle it myself. In storytelling, this is mainly used through subverting expectations and or stereotypes. The part we are going to be focusing on is the subversion of expectations, which is a big player in Good Omens. One of the main things to do with the humor of Good Omens is the way that Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett leaned into, is the way they subverted every character that is usually thought of as evil or unlikable, aka demons, and turning them into a somewhat, at least, sympathetic character. This is by subverting traditional portrayals of demons, well-known characters, figures, religious beings as angels and demons are great opportunities for subverting expectation. Because we all know these characters, we already have an image in our mind of who they would be, and it is really funny when they are not at all who we thought they would be. Now, diving into the writing process of Good Omens, in my research, I did uncover that Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett would send each other chapters or sections of the book, and their goal with each section was simply to make the other person laugh. And this makes a lot of sense with how the book comes across, because this freedom of just writing what you think the other person would see as funny really gives this atmosphere to the book where these are just two writers who wanted to collaborate, and they're just having a good time and they're just telling jokes that they think are funny with no idea that anything would come of it ever. It was just a book. It was like they didn't even think anybody was gonna publish it. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have like publishing in mind or anything in order to not take your story too seriously. This is simply the idea of taking that weight off of your shoulders and being able to write something that you fully enjoy. This is not a situation of writing something that you want to be able to sell, because that is a losing battle. On the plotting level, writing a story that doesn't take itself too seriously can be done in several ways, from what I've gathered. One is finding the way your characters would find the situation itself funny. This is more character-based and leans into your characters not taking the situation fully seriously, or finding humor in serious situations. I find this equates more to shows like Supernatural, where the characters are constantly cracking jokes, or a show like Our Flag Means Death, possibly. I don't know. But in terms of shows like Supernatural, where the characters are in very serious situations, but they still crack jokes about what's going on, what comes into my mind is an episode where they are like being hunted by literal cannibals, and Dean cracks a joke about Sam not being like as quick as he used to be because they got the jump on him. And it's just like, this is a very serious situation, but he still finds the time to make jokes. The second version of this is that the situation itself is funny. So this falls more in the realm of the Good Omens writing. In Good Omens, the characters themselves don't crack jokes about the apocalypse. This is mainly referring to season 1 of Good Omens, as season 2 kind of goes off in a slightly different direction, but it still feels pretty similar. So Crowley and Aziraphale aren't cracking jokes about the apocalypse. They find it very serious, but the situation that is unfolding, the like incompetence of heaven and hell on either side, the fact that it's just such a mess is in itself quite funny. In Good Omens, serious moments are lightened by pop culture references or a character cracking a joke. One example is in season 2, I think episode 2, when Aziraphale is scared that Crowley is coming to take him to hell, and he's like, I am a demon now, and Crowley literally cracks a joke about Aziraphale's demeanor, and is like, you're a demon with a little I'm a fallen angel. Another would be Hester's very long scream when the other demon is like, I don't know, melted by the holy water. And when Aziraphale has his line of, get thee behind me, foul fiend. These are all lines that poke fun at the situation or poke fun at the other person, just trying to lighten up what is happening. Good Omens really pushes archetypes in the extremes, with demons being quite emotional and angels being quite actually rigid and closed off. The type of humor in Good Omens is reminiscent of books like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and more recently, movies like Guardians of the Galaxy. Funnily enough, both of them have galaxy in the name. That's really a little bit, okay, odd. With each of these stories taking character archetypes or plot points that we know very well and just flipping them on their heads. Like, they're totally turned around. Let's talk about those silly little demons, guys. Woo. That seems like a ghost, not a demon. Demons. I'm just having a little bit of cookie dough as we talk about some demons. Demons are commonly assumed to be, you know, manipulative. They are the embodiment of evil. Brooding figures, stalking in the darkness. But in Good Omens, they're quite the opposite. They're actually very funny and quite socially, like, out of touch. In the book, it is said about Hester, I believe, that they seem to be stuck a few centuries before the current time. Whereas Crowley in both cases is very comfortable with his emotions. I'm using he, him pronouns because that's what they use in the show. Crowley is the most emotional character in all of Good Omens. Whenever we see Crowley get upset, he's always the most emotional and the most dramatic in that scene. Granted, a lot of those scenes are like him alone, like when he storms into Aziraphale's burning bookshop, or after that and he's at like the bar. But I can't see Aziraphale, like, maybe we'll see it in season 3, but I can't see Aziraphale like literally like crying and breaking down. Like, boy is not that in touch with his emotions. Crowley, my boy, he is very in touch with his emotions, and it is beautiful. This means that Crowley is subverted through his emotions. As we see, we assume that demons would be closed off. We assume that they would be brutal. They would be really mean. But Crowley is actually the most honest and emotional of all the characters that we see in the show and the book. Let's be real. We don't see as much of his emotional side in the book, but still, it's there. Outward appearances are a great opportunity for comedy, especially in the way of subverting expectations. In the case of the show, we have Crowley dressed in all black, driving around a classic car. We assume he's the bad boy. He's the one who does not talk about his feelings. He does not go there. And Aziraphale, he's all in white, very like effeminate. And this is where social norms and stereotypes and gender roles come into play. Because even when it's two male protagonists, we still assume that the mask like presenting character would be the dominant character, the one that like stereotypical like masculine behavior would not open up about their emotions. But in this case, it is the opposite. Crowley is always the one talking about his feelings, and Aziraphale is the one that's pulling back. He is the one that's shutting these conversations down. He does not want to hear it. Another example of this, which might be a little bit of a sore topic right now because of recent news, is Blackbeard / Ed from Our Flag Means Death. The historical context and what little we know about Blackbeard in history, he was like a brutal pirate. Like, yeah, he has a reputation of being very violent, being very brutal. But when we meet Ed in the show, and he is introduced as a very curious, very like caring character when we meet him, it is so much funnier when he shows those traits because it is the exact opposite of how he presents and what we would expect from this kind of character. Love that. I just finished season 1. I'm way behind. The other main attribute that at least the Good Omens fandom, I'm not sure about the Our Flag Means Death fandom, but the Good Omens fandom has really latched on to this attribute in Crowley, which is the one that he is very protective of Aziraphale. And this became so much clearer in season 2. And this again goes against the assumptions that we have in regards to gender roles, because when we see a character like Crowley with a character like Aziraphale, we assume that the mask presenting character, the less effeminate one, would be the dominant one. Meanwhile, we have like compilations of Crowley just following Aziraphale around in season 2 and just like it's giving husband behavior. It's just, he's whipped. Moving on. The other demons in the show are much more the fish out of water types. Instead of their humor being at their benefit, like it is with Crowley, it's at their expense. We are mainly laughing at how little they know about human society. Like when Hester doesn't know what chow means, or when Shax needs to be literally coached on how to behave when doing Crowley's job. The demons are more serious, like they don't seem to have a huge sense of humor. Their humor comes from either their frustrations with Crowley or just their lack of knowledge. Now, the angels don't require as much subversion because the subversion itself is about not having like evil characters be as evil and things not being as scary. So angels in and of themselves are not scary in like culture. So they don't require quite as much adjustment. But in this case, Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett took the angels and really dialed their naivety And they're just like, follow the rules and everything will be okay, and dialed it up to 11. Like, it was just, it's so much. They are so sure of themselves that it's ridiculous. Much like the demons, the angels' humor comes from how little they know about humanity. I think the character of Muriel in season 2 really plays into this a lot. Like, they're the prime example of this. Much like Aziraphale, their humor comes from like their trusting nature and their naivety. It's just like we can laugh while at the same time being like, oh sweetie. That is the laugh. It's just like, oh honey, no. Oh sweetie. protect them. With Aziraphale, one of the big parts that gives his character humor is his hobbies. And Aziraphale is the character who gets the most hobbies. Now, Crowley has his plants. He has his car. I don't think there's much else that is just for Crowley. But Aziraphale, boy's been busy. Like, he loves, like, really good food. He loves records. He loves fancy restaurants and antique books. He's got a lot going on. He's been busy. While the other angels are like detached from humanity. Literally in the first episode, Gabriel is like, why would you eat that? You're an angel. And Aziraphale's like, it was sushi. Why the fuck not? Like, make it make sense. My God. Subversion in the angels is not about turning bad into funny. It is about turning like good into morally gray. So funny. The angels in the show do think that they are better than the demons, while at the same time the story explores that heaven actually has some blood on its hands, probably the same amount if not more than hell. So, and they simply choose to ignore that. Sounds like a great plan. Yeah, just go along with the great plan and everything will be fine. They're so determined that they're doing the right thing that they come up with the weirdest excuses for their actions. They're like, yeah, it's fine. It's ineffable. What does ineffable mean? This is in words, and you don't know what it means. I don't know. The cluelessness of the angels is truly the main pinnacle of their humor. They are so, like, blinkers on that they can't hear anybody else, and they're just following orders, and they're just talking bullshit. When writing a story with characters who are good or bad, try thinking about how you can surprise your audience. If you want to make it funny, say in the way that Good Omens is, then subverting expectations, looking at what you would think these characters would do in your mind, and just saying, what if they did the complete opposite? What is the expectation, and how can you make it flip? I've been moving so much in this video. I'm not used to having so many different camera angles, but I thought it'd be fun. So let's round out this video with a few little tips we're going to talk about. Most of the time, your character situation is serious for them. They may be very accustomed to the situation, like, say, Sam and Dean in Supernatural, because, yeah, they do this all the time, so they can find humor in it. But even in situations that are very serious, you can find silly moments, because beings want to laugh. I'm not saying humans, because we were talking about angels and demons. So, creatures, beings enjoy a good laugh. takes the pressure off. It really, let's go. What were some of your favorite moments in Good Omens? Or what are some of your favorite like funny stories? Like TV shows, movies, etc. Let me know down in the comments if there is a kind of humor that you're planning to incorporate into your story. What kind of story are you planning to write? Are you currently writing something? I'd love to know. I want to start chatting in the comments. Let's get things moving, guys. Let's make a little community of writers. That'd be really fun. That's it from me for this video. Leave a like for the laughs and the algorithm. Hit that subscribe button, and I'll be back next week. That was a really weird way to go. Like, hit that subscribe button. Hit that subscribe. Hit that. Hit that subscribe button down below, and I will see you guys next week with another video. Bye.